voice17104.com. This is Zanetta Winkle, and you're listening to The Voice 17104.com. The Voice 17104.com. Welcome to Did You Know? Podcast, your host, Richard Utley, dedicated to the African American viewers. The program is aimed to celebrate African American culture and deal with the real and relevant topics that impact the everyday lives of the African American community through frank and insightful dialogue with local and national influencers. Every day, there's another horrible, discouraging news story, directly or indirectly, impacting African Americans. But we need to look at the shining stars in the galaxy of Black America. It is time to tell our story.
Good evening, and welcome to another Did You Know? Well, I'm going to give you a couple history lessons today, assignments, as I always said I was going to do, because I told you that if we are a group and don't know our history and what direction we're going in, then shame on us. So I'm going to start out with the theory today. I'm going to say, armed with the knowledge of our past, we can with confidence charter a better course for our future. And that's from Malcolm X. All right, what am I going to talk about today? Well, the first thing I'm going to talk about, a lot of things is going on. I'm sure you've seen the news and know all the different things that's going on. But one of the things I think we need to address today, and we need to think about it, is this whole thing about extremism that's taking place in America. We better take a long look at what's going on in this country. And as I've shared with you so many times, we got to look out for ourselves. We can't keep waiting on somebody, my favorite statement, waiting on a horse to come through our communities and do for us. At one time, we could confidently turn on the U.S. Supreme Court for relief for extreme behavior. And that attempt has been taken away. We've already had rights, and we can see, unfortunately, different things are being taken away. We also know that extremes want to cancel true African-American history. Talking about fair voting rights, rights to be educated at a certain university. Teachers are being fired. Books have been banned. Affirmative action rights to correct the past. They want to correct, because they did a lot of wrong things. So now it's time for them. They should try to correct the things that they have done. But you've seen that that's been canceled. You see that women's rights have been canceled. So you see a lot that's going on. So I think that we better stop taking everything for granted. And I think what we must do, we must start to attend our city councils, school boards. I've told you we have to get involved in the political process, whether it's Democrat, Republican, Independent. We can't fight the extremism that's growing all around us by waiting for someone else to handle those things. We must stand up and to help fight for ourselves. I was talking about when I just said about Malcolm X. We as Black people have endured slavery, Jim Crow, and a whole lot of things. And it's up to us to make sure that we teach our kids who we really are and the great legacies that we have had before us and those that will be coming. And one of the things that I hope we continue to do is to support young people. We got to tell them they're something, they're about something. Because when they don't have no hope and they have no dreams and they have no vision, then a lot of them don't care. And that's not right. So we need to do a better job as a people to encourage young people, to try to understand them, because they bring a lot to the table. And I remember, it might have been about 8 months ago, I had someone on, and I said something, and that young man made me think. He said, we as older people need to take the time to listen to young people, because young people do have an opinion, and sometimes the things that we might have thought that were right and correct may not necessarily have been right or correct, or how they were projected to us and how maybe we projected it to them might not be the right or the correct way. So I hope that as you continue to encourage young people, tell them that they're going to be something, they're about something. And the other thing is, please say hello or hi to the older senior citizens that's around. Some of them don't have a family. Somebody don't have anybody around. It doesn't hurt to be nice. And we as a people, we have always been a very kind, gentle people. And I think if we start to go back to that, maybe we will have less killings and shootings, and somebody bumps you and they want to shoot you or cut you because they said you disrespected them. And it really wasn't about that. So hopefully we can start changing our whole culture, because I tell people all the time, yes, we do. We care about our neighborhoods. We care about our families. And sometimes that's why I have this program, because sometimes there's a lot of misinformation that people preach gospel. I run into so many people that tell me about, oh, there's so many women out there and there's not a male in the household. That's not true. There are a lot of Black males in the household. There really is. I'm sure there's a significant number that's not, but there's a lot that is. But it's any race of people. That could be the same thing. So I think that that's why you out there in this audience need to start telling your story. You need to start telling your kids who you really are. What's the legacies back? Explain to them how tough it was that maybe for your father's father, mother's mother, uncles, grandfathers, because sometimes I think we give a false security to people thinking that everything was all right and everything wasn't all right. So with that, I want to say that, please, drugs and guns is tearing our community apart. And if we don't help to fix that, then it's going to be shame on us. Because now I'm sure all of you are seeing everything that's on TV. You see all this stuff on TV, all the negativeness. So let us in your household, in your churches, in your organizations, or as we walk down the street in our communities or the basketball courts, let's try to be positive to one another. Well, I'm going to leave you with 3 things today before I bring my guest on. I told you I believe in giving you a history lesson. And I'm going to give you one today, but I want to give you 3 names. I told you I'm not going to tell you who it is or what it is, because I want you to do the research. One's going to be pioneer Dr. Nathan Hale Williams. Do your research. Find out who he is. That's number 1. Now, number 2, but I'm going to put it in a paraphrase for you so you can do your own research. In 1965, President Lyndon Baines Johnson, what did he do in 1965? Well, I'll give you a hint. All these, now they're trying to make it tough for us to vote. They're trying to make it rough for us to vote. Matter of fact, they want ID. You see, all these different states are trying to change the way we vote. So what does that have to do with 1965? Just want you to think about it. The other one is 1865, President Andrew Johnson. Most of you don't know who he is and what he's about. Well, I'm going to put it in perspective for you, and then I'm going to turn it on because I have a guest on that I'm going to paraphrase this with. Well, if you know, after the Civil War, Lincoln was the president and he was assassinated. And then President Andrew Johnson came in. I'm sure most of you don't know, but back then, the land was confiscated from the slave owners, and a lot of the land was given to Black slaves. And when Andrew Jackson came in, what did he do? he took the land back. So where you had a lot of people that had land didn't have land anymore. And that's why I get upset when people say it was a fair equal change. It was not. So you got to do your history, because they took the land back. So I want you to find out what happened. So there it is. That's what I'm going to tell you. So when we talk about economics, empowerment, we talk about wealth, and we talk about pulling up out of bootstraps. And then when we talk about the real fact of saying that we didn't start on a fair playing field, we're still catching up. That was about the whole affirmative action. The affirmative action thing was to help try to go back, to help us to try to become at a level playing field, which we know that we thought we were going that course, but you saw it just got derailed. So one of the things today, I'm absolutely happy and exciting, because I have a young man on that I'm going to bring on, Jamal Jones. He's going to be on. I have him on. He's the program manager at the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, CIE. I brought him on because we're going to talk about a lot of things, because he has a lot of wisdom and he has a lot of knowledge that's going to help you. Because one of the things I understand now more than I've ever understood before, if we don't know, we don't know. So how can we do things if we don't know? So I made it a decision. Sometimes it's best to bring people on that can kind of give us some guidance and some leadership. But before I get into the nitty gritty with him, I want him to tell you who he is, where he came from, and what made him do what he's doing. But first, I want him to give you the background of who he is. But I want to say this in fairness. I do know his father and his mother, and I know where he comes from. But he's going to tell you who he is. But I want to be candid that he came from a strong group. And that's why he's sitting here today. Because if he would have zigged, his mother and father would have zagged him. There you go, buddy. Tell him you are.
Thank you, Mr. Utley. Appreciate having the opportunity to come out and sit down and talk with you. I know we talked about doing this a little bit in the past, and just wanted to say that from some of the, as you mentioned, you know me, and we've had a chance to, begin to do some work together in the community, and from that, just honored to have a chance to sit down and have this conversation with you. But as you said in the introduction, my name is Jamal Jones. Most importantly, I'm from Harrisburg, born and raised, grew up on North 3rd Street in Uptown. Mother and father, as you mentioned, still live in the same house I grew up in, which I think is very important. Fortunate for that. I know that's not a lot of people's story, where they're able to just kind of have that consistency and stability, so I think, not I think, but I know everything that I've done up to this point, in my life, career-wise or educationally, I kind of tie all that back into just having that strong foundation at home. But as I said, from Harrisburg, proud graduate of the Harrisburg School District, graduated from Harrisburg High School, left here, went to college, graduate, hold a bachelor's degree in English from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Very fortunate to be able to come, having come back to Harrisburg, and really, over the past, 20 some odd years now, have had a chance to really, fulfill a lot of the different passions and interests that, I've had, whether it be from education, so I've had a chance to work in the school systems, community mental health, I've had a chance to work in the community with young people, doing wraparound services, doing some counseling, family therapy, and then over the last 10 or so years of my career, that was really where I kind of found a niche, I think, in workforce development, economic development, and then just being able to support entrepreneurs and small businesses. I really think that there's a connection between both on the workforce development side, where you're talking more about helping people find jobs and find employment, to entrepreneurship, where people are starting their own businesses and starting their own companies, and now they're in positions to create jobs for other people. So I think all of those things, from helping somebody get the skills to go to work, to helping someone develop the skills to be an employer and to start a business, all of those things help our community because it's providing opportunities. And I think that's really what the big thing is, is just creating those opportunities for people to do something positive and to better themselves.
Before I really get into your profession, there was something that you said, and I think it's very important. You talk about the fact that you graduated from Harrisburg, and you talked about the fact that you went to Georgetown.
Sure.
My big thing has always been, and sometimes people get confused about labeling of school districts. And so you look at this young man, he went to Harrisburg and he went to Georgetown. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I went to Westinghouse, which is an urban school, and I went to the University of Pittsburgh. There are people that form opinions about a school district, and there's so many really very bright, smart people that come out of that neighborhood or out of those schools and do well, whether it's Stilton, whether it's schools of that nature.
Right.
Sometimes people label, especially schools that are in the minority community, or they consider, a school if it's predominantly Black or Black and Hispanic or whatever, and then they form that there are kids there. There are a lot of very smart young people that graduate from those schools and they go on to other schools, or they not only just go to college, but they end up doing a lot of other things. And their story is never told. It's always the negative stories told. You always hear about the one that got robberies or things of criminal element. And that's why I think it's so important that we tell our stories, but we tell the stories ourselves.
For sure.
Because if we keep waiting on somebody else to tell that story. Now, if he would have been on a regular TV, he might have said 2 minutes or whatever his program was, but we didn't really know who he is. So now we know that he's one of us. He's from the hood. And not only he's from the hood, but he took his education and he took his passion and he said, you know what? I'm going to do something with it. And that's why I admire you, because that's what you wanted to do. Now, yes, we all have parents that kind of give us the foundation, but we also have kids that we know that had a foundation, but they zigged opposed to going zag.
For sure.
You were fortunate, and not only that, but something I also know about you, you do in your own way mentor young people, because they have to see us and believe in us and see that we made it. And people don't really understand that sometimes. And that's one of the things that I've always felt that was important. If you bring people on here and you say, oh, they did this, they did that, people assumed it might have been an easy road. And it has not always been an easy road. I know it has not been an easy road. You know it hasn't been an easy road. And there's a number of us, including his father and I and many of us, we had a rough way to go, with our hopes that he would have a less hard way to go. But at the end, he stands on his own shoulders, because at the end, he's the one that's accountable for who he is. And that's why I have him on here today, to talk about a lot of things that you should know about, things that you can just take. If you take one thing from this conversation today, then this conversation has been successful. Tell your grandsons, tell your kids, there's opportunities out there, because I get tired of hearing, I didn't know. And usually for us, no pun intended, we usually come after the horse that's already out the barn, all the way down the road. Then all of a sudden we want to run and tie it up so that the horse don't get away. Too late. So my job is to try to bring people on or tell stories so that we'll know what's going on. So, okay, your background is, all right, let's go with small business opportunities first.
Sure.
Why do you feel that's important? Number one, why do you feel small business opportunities is important? And why do you feel sometimes that we hedge up or we get scared of it or we hear it or we want to own businesses and we think that we got 10 t-shirts that we designed and our relatives bought those 10 t-shirts and then we go buy 20 more and we haven't figured out how to sell them.
Yeah.
And then we get frustrated.
Right. Well, I think, small businesses are, it's said that small businesses are really the backbone of, the U.S. economy. Most of the businesses, in the United States are, in fact, small businesses. I think if you look at, a lot of the companies that, we know now that have, very big names, from your Walmarts, to, Heinz ketchup and, Kellogg cereals, many of those businesses started as small family-owned businesses. I think some of the, some of the hesitancy, sometimes behind people in whether it's wanting to support a small business is the
Turn this way to the camera.
is the failure rate. So that scares people off. Small businesses, fail at almost a 50%, failure rate, which it can be discouraging to people to get into small business, but also for people to even support small businesses. So some people may they prefer to take their money to one of those big box stores because they may feel that there's going to be a difference in quality or make sure they're getting the most for their money. But I think that small businesses can grow and can be successful, but we have to, as a community, kind of wrap our arms around those small businesses and just understanding that no business is going to do well without support. Many people choose to go into small business kind of as a side gig. Maybe that's something that they're doing to supplement their income. But what we saw through the pandemic is that a lot of you would think you've seen some businesses close during that time. Many businesses failed, but believe it or not, during that time period, 2020, 2021, some people really saw that as an opportunity to start a small business. Whether they found a niche that they were able to fulfill for the public. Many people started delivery types of businesses. You see the popularity of services like DoorDash. Some people independently became couriers, where they're able to go out and get things to people that they needed, whether it be food or medicine or other, important things. So, which is one of the things we'll talk about through the CIE, which is the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We're providing people with, resources and opportunity to go into business for themselves. People from, the Black community, from brown communities, women, which these are populations that sometimes are cut off and have historically been cut off from resources. But we're trying to help people, fulfill those dreams and turn those ideas into something important.
So since you brought that up, why don't you go ahead and explain that whole CIE?
Sure.
And let's go with that one. And then, because I got some more questions for you. You're not getting off the hook for just CIE. I'm going to get into it.
No.
So explain the whole concept and why you think it's so important. And let me be honest, I do remember this program is an excellent program. Even though I must admit, they did give me an award. So I just want to go on record here.
Full disclosure.
Yeah, full disclosure.
Yeah.
I did get it. So maybe that's why he's on. I'm just joking.
Full disclosure.
But I thought the program is so good and you're on. So please explain it all.
Yeah. Well, the CIE is about 4 years old, started in about 2019. Founding director, his name is J.J. Moen. He's somebody who, if that's a name you're hearing for the first time, do your Googles, look him up. But Jay is kind of what they refer to as a serial entrepreneur. He's started about 3 tech companies, exited successfully, out of 2 of those companies. But I really think that he brings in a knowledge base and an expertise into the Harrisburg area, which unfortunately, we not all have been able to really see and experience and kind of be around someone who's successfully started a large tech company before. But so Jay's the founding director, but he came with an idea. He and Harrisburg University's president Eric Dar, with an idea just around how do we support entrepreneurs in Harrisburg. From that, grew the CIE. So what we do is typically over about a year's time, 12 to 18 months, we operate what's called an incubator program, which I know you're familiar with, Mr. Utley. But through an incubator program, we're able to provide resources and supports to entrepreneurs, to help them get their business off the ground. Your business does not have to be an existing business. It could just be an idea, but what we do is kind of take you through the process of what's called ideation. And really that is just figuring out what is your idea and what it's going to take to have that idea grow into a functioning business. So through the CIE, we provide space at Harrisburg University. We have a 4,000 square foot center that's located in Strawberry Square. We provide you the opportunity to work with Harrisburg University students who can be your first set of employees and some internship opportunities. And then I mentioned just the supports, so those supports look like strategy, so discussion strategy with you, mentoring, connecting you to other resources in the area that provide funding for new businesses. So really through all of those things, our goal is to really just, create the next wave of entrepreneurs in Harrisburg and the surrounding areas.
We've been flashing it as you've been talking, and so people can have an opportunity. Now, what I'm trying to tell you, my audience here, take notes, listen to what he's saying. They got a program to help you. You don't already have to have it, but if you have an idea, because there's so many of you, I run into so many people that want to start a business, that sounds good, but then somebody gives you all the negatives, opposed to working with you with the positives. So at least these kind of organizations, you go there, the CIE with the Harrisburg University, to help entrepreneurs. Now, also, I think you do have, you have another program. I just want you to share it real quickly.
Sure.
Where people come in and they talk about what they're doing, and then you decide to fund them, because people see it on TV all the time.
Yes. Yeah, I think probably what you're talking about is the Launch U program.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the easiest way to explain Launch U is if I mention Shark Tank. So
there you go.
That's a program that a lot of people are familiar with. So our Launch U program, again, it's a 4-year-old program. What we do is over about a 6-week period, we take applications and then we select the top 8 best applicants, and they move into our final round. And then over that 6 weeks, we pair up that either entrepreneur or team of up to 5 entrepreneurs. We pair them up with a business mentor. So over that 5-week period, that mentor is going to help them create a document called an investment summary. So what that investment summary does is helps that person identify who is their market, so who are their customers, helps them identify who is their competition, helps them develop a marketing strategy. So basically figure out, how am I going to get this product idea out to the public? And then lastly, we ask them, what are you going to do with the money? Because there is a cash prize that we give. So we want to have them start to think around, if I do win this cash prize, how am I going to invest this back into my business? So over that 6 weeks, we're working with them, we're coaching these teams, all to prepare them for our pitch finale. So on that finale day, each team gives a business pitch, which is typically it's a PowerPoint presentation of about 10 slides, which is really going to walk us through what is the idea, why that idea is important, what problem does it solve, and typically, why would someone want to buy this product, or why would somebody want to invest in it? And proud to say that at this point, we've awarded close to $30,000 in prize money, following this Launch U competition. What started as a competition that was strictly just for students at Harrisburg University, has grown to now include members of our community, that have been winners, We've had college students from out of state. We had a young lady from Alabama A&M University. She won first prize in the competition 2 years ago. Last year, our grand prize winner was a high school student from Turkey. So program has grown to be an international program at this point. And again, that's we love to do that program, especially you mentioned earlier, young people. Over the last 2 years, we started to focus a lot more on high school students and college students. And the reason behind that is, I think if you can get to a student or a young person, early on and start to help build these entrepreneurial skills, that's a lifelong skill, that a person can take. So a young lady by the name of Madonna that we work with, she always says, I'll steal this from her, but she says, if you can teach a person how to get to $1, that's a lifelong skill.
Yep, and that would be her, and she would say that. The importance of this is could you tell my audience here, how do they get the information, because so that they can start to prepare for it, start to think forward now, because what usually happens, it always happens, is that the deadline will be one day and then everybody will try to get to you the day before the deadline, and they don't. So you now have time to have a vision to put this together, because I think that what we have to start to doing in our community, we have to start to look at things long term, not necessarily short term. And what he said that was very important, because I'm a believer of this. Everybody thinks I'm crazy. Economic development is very important. I think economic development is very important into the minority community, because we are the ones that's going to end up hiring some of us, because we will be able to understand some of us and some of the situations that people got into. But at the same time, we have to also support them.
For sure. To your point about the, when does this happen? So, great question. Glad to answer that. So we usually run this program starting in January. So our website, I think is probably flashing on the screen there, but cie.harrisburgu.edu is our website. If you go to our website and you go to the Launch U page, right now, what you'll see is a message pops up which lets you know that our competition for 2023 has ended. But if you put in your email address, you can get on the mailing list so that we're able to send you information about the program once we get a little closer to January, when our application will open up. So typically first week of January through the first week in March is when we accept applications. And then the actual program itself, as far as the mentoring, that takes place from March until the first week in May. And then that second week in May is usually when we have our pitch competition. So please, I say any young people, and again, I think an important thing to note is, I think young people kind of, it's a tough time for young people right now, I think, just as far as who they should be looking to for leadership, for mentorship, trying to figure out, which way to go. But, I think there's a ton of good that's going on out there for young people. I think young people now who are taking advantage of some of the opportunities that are out there. A young person now could basically run a business from an iPhone. If they know how to use YouTube, TikTok, there's ways for them to earn money really while they're sleeping, just by getting streams, so, and there's tons of young people who are doing that. So, I think, it's funny, as I get a little older, I realize I'm in a different generation than a lot of these young people now, but I do notice that, some of the times I think we can be, a little tough and a little judgmental on young people, but times are different. So that's understood, but, there's a lot of good going on. And I say that a prime example of that is over the last 2 weeks ago, we actually did a partnership with the Harrisburg Housing Authority. Shout out to Sangor Mans and Oche Bridgeford at the Housing Authority, Mr. Clarence Watson, also with the Environmental Teen Corps program. But we ran a 2-week summer youth entrepreneurship camp for about 25 students in Harrisburg. And when I say that some of the ideas that they came up with were $1 million ideas, $1 million ideas that I think with the right support and obviously with some investment behind it, I think we could see some of those ideas be things that change the world just in terms of how we do business. But again, these are 13 to 16-year-old students right here in Harrisburg, from Harrisburg. But had a great 2 weeks with them, and they really they really showed out in terms of some of the ideas and the concepts that they came up with.
A couple other questions I have. Do you see a lot of new businesses starting to emerge in Harrisburg? And also, do you see a lot of those businesses, especially for minorities in the Black community, they can identify with?
Yeah, for sure. As I mentioned a little bit before, coming out of the pandemic, we nationally, we saw big growth in small business, and that trend is evident here in Harrisburg as well. Just from the different types of businesses that you see. I mentioned before, a lot of businesses were pandemic responses. So people were figuring out, how can I take something that was typically done in person, but now how am I able to do that online, either through the use of an app or through the use of a website. So obviously you have your typical, service businesses, are very popular. Food, retail, businesses are remain, popular as well. But again, I think, people who are able to identify a problem and try to, solve that problem with a product or a service. And I say especially, if they can incorporate any technology into it, and it doesn't, I think that's one of the beautiful things about the time period that we're in. A lot of skills can be obtained with not a lot of money and not a lot of time. You can watch YouTube tutorials, to teach you how to do certain things. There are apps now that you can use which are low code or no code, which means you don't need to be a coder, in order to build an app, but you can just use the platform, enter your information onto it, and then begin to use that. So you could open up an online store, with websites like Square. Canva is another product that's out there to help you out. Shopify is another one. So you mentioned before, if you have t-shirts or bracelets, jewelry, things like that you're manufacturing, it's easy to get that up online. And what happens then is that you're not just Harrisburg doesn't become your customer. Mm-hmm. Anyone with an internet connection throughout the world can support your business. So small businesses are, again, I mentioned, just kind of, I think they're the backbone of many U.S. economies.
But I think it's important, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that we need to know about those things, but we have to encourage those things, because one of my issues is that we, for a long time, especially my generation, we talked about education. But I don't think that my parents or some other parents, we talked enough about entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. Because I think entrepreneurship was very important. For sure. That is what grows the economy. That's what grows your community. Yeah. And I think, as I shared a few minutes ago, sometimes people make decisions, not necessarily a right decision when they're young, and then all of a sudden they want to go get a job later on, and they take that decision they made when they were way back, and it's still held against them. Mm-hmm. But we as a people, understanding that, we are going to have to step up to the plate to become a lot more of those employers.
Sure.
So in saying all of that, so what you're saying is that people need to start talking about businesses, entrepreneurship, and giving people hope, dream, and visions that they can do those things. Because if you don't talk about owning businesses, if you don't talk about owning something, then it doesn't become a conversation. We talk too much about sports. We always talk about everybody can't be the basketball player, everybody can't be the football player or the baseball player, good, bad, or indifferent. But there's so many other valuable things that you have out there, whether you sell artwork or whether you sell jewelry or whether you do, because somewhere down the line, as you get older, you're going to have to come up with a way to support yourself.
Mhm.
And so I think it's important that the audience do understand there's opportunities out there. But like you said, if you don't know about them, then what do you think? So I'm glad that you're on here today to talk about CIE and what they're doing. And he said in January, so you got time to sit back and think about it. And he already told you what you can do. Contact Harrisburg University. He said in January, you can't wait to December 31st to decide the idea that you have or whatever.
Sure.
So some of you, if you don't want anybody to know, get a little notebook, get a little piece of paper and write your vision down. And I will say this, write your vision down and go ahead and chase your dream. You got to chase your dream. But at the same time of chasing your dream, you got to have some reality to it. I've always told people, I never tell nobody what they can't do, because anybody can do what they want to do. Now, certain things, you just have to have certain things with it. I mean, if you want to be an astronaut, I would never tell you can't be an astronaut. But if you don't like math and you don't want to go to math class, it's going to be kind of hard for you to get there. What about, okay, you talked about that. What about workforce opportunities? What do you, when you say workforce, what do you mean by that? And what do you see as a vision for us?
Sure. I was on another podcast a few weeks back, and we had a discussion about this. And I said at that time, I think workforce development is probably one of the most under recognized and kind of underappreciated industries out there. Even though workforce development really, it touches all of us in some way. Either you're an employee where you have a job, you're part of a workforce, or if you are a business owner, you employ people, which makes you part of the workforce. Even education, teachers who are preparing students to go to college or go directly into a job. That's all workforce development. I kind of, I'll tell you a quick story about kind of how I got my start in workforce development. I was working as a teacher in 2010. And at that time, the school I was working in had some financial issues. So they had to do some major layoffs. Unfortunately, I was one of the people that got caught up in those layoffs. Just not being a tenured teacher, I hadn't been there too long. So for the next year, I experienced a period of unemployment. First time in my life, since I had started working, that I didn't have a job. But at that time, I was able to collect unemployment, through the state unemployment system. And during that time, I found out that there were resources available to you if you were unemployed. So I got a letter in the mail, calling me into like an orientation that you had to go into. The meeting was called PrEP. So I went into the meeting. It was at the Career Link, which used to be on Wiconisco Street, uptown here. So went into the meeting. They talk to you, tell you about how you apply for your unemployment and those kinds of things. But the biggest piece that I got from that meeting was there was a website which I could go on to job search. So went onto that website, was able to log in, look through the jobs, and I found a job that I said, this seems interesting. It was as a career coach. Didn't really know what it was, but I read through the job description, saw that I matched some of the skills that were there. So went to the job interview, did pretty well in the interview, and was offered the job, took the position. But I say it's so ironic because I went from a period of unemployment to becoming what was called a reemployment career coach. So my job was to help people who were unemployed find jobs and find work. So I really believe that I think that many things happen to us which are kind of preordained and are kind of out of our hands. and pretty much spirit led. And I feel like that was spirit led for me to go into that type of work, going directly from being unemployed to getting a job, helping people find jobs. And that ended up being an 8-year experience for me, going from starting out just as a career coach, where I was helping people do career assessments, so figuring out what skills they had and what type of work they liked. We had tons of training programs where I was helping people get enrolled into training programs, from learning how to operate machinery to getting their CDL to getting a nurse's aide certification. I got promoted from being a career coach to working in business services, where now I was working with employers, figuring out what types of opportunities that they had. And then in our programs at the Career Link, we were identifying, strong workers that had good skills and could interview well, and matching them up with those jobs. Got promoted again into a management opportunity, which at the time I was working in Lancaster. Shout out to Anna Ramos. She works in Lancaster. She actually hired me for that job. But I came back to Harrisburg at that time and became a program manager and then a director of a youth workforce program, which we started out just in Harrisburg and Carlisle. But by the time I was finished, we had expanded to 5 counties, and we were doing GEDs. So helped tons of people get their GEDs. We were doing job skills again with young people, summer jobs. Proud to say that during that 5 or so years that I was in that position, we helped young people in this area earn close to $1 million in summer job wages that they were able to buy their own school clothes and help out their families. So it was really rewarding work for me. But generally, as I started out, workforce development is just helping people and preparing people to enter into the workforce. So whether that be through training, like hard skill training, like how to operate a machine, or what we used to call soft skills, which are things like being on time, being prepared, knowing how to handle conflict in the workplace. All of those are work skills, they're job skills, which in some cases need to be taught. Everybody doesn't bring all those skills to the table. So as a workforce development professional, we're helping people acquire those skills.
And so your experience from what you just said, are you saying that people need to look out there what's going on, do some homework, do some research? Because a lot of people think it's just supposed to just come and fall on you. So what would be your recommendations to the listening audience out here in terms of your fact of you're talking about workforce development?
Yeah, my recommendations are, one, well, I'll say this, everything ain't for everybody, so I think it's important for you to know, what your interests are, and try to match that up with your skills. So there may be something that you may think you want to be maybe you want to work on a cruise ship, okay, but maybe you can't swim, so maybe that's not the best job for you. So just because you have an interest in something, if you don't have the skills, I'm not saying that that's completely off the table, but you need to figure out how do you build those skills. So maybe that's through going back to school, or maybe taking some some short-term training that's available out there. Just making sure that you are putting yourself in the best position to be considered, for the job that you want. But definitely, as you mentioned, do your research. There's tons of information that's available to us online. You can go online. There's free job assessments. Where there may be a short quiz which maybe asks you 25 to 50 questions, and it'll ask you things like, do you enjoy working with other people? Do you prefer working by yourself? Do you like to work outside? Those types of things. And then based on how you answer those questions, to give you a list of career pathways that might be a fit for you, based on how you responded. So again, I think it's very important to have a clear picture of who you are, what you enjoy, type of experiences that you enjoy, and then try to find a job or a career that matches that. And if you take a quick car trip right now, pretty much any employer who you drive by is hiring right now. So I'd say for anyone that is, if you're working but you're maybe in a career that is not for you and you're ready for a change, I would say do the research and try to find the best fit for you. I'm pretty confident that something's out there.
I mean, I hear you and I hear what you're saying, but a lot of times the problem is information. We don't get the information.
Sure.
We don't know a lot about what you're saying. And unfortunately, I mean, social media is good, but at the same time, social media doesn't give us the kind of information
Right.
that you just talked about.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that people need to do their research. They find everything else they want to find out. So so they have to be held accountable for that.
I say do your research, and then also I mentioned there are there's resources out there. The story I told about where I ended up getting a job, place called the Pennsylvania Career Link. There's an 8-county region that we sit in. Dauphin County's in that region. In that 8-county region, there are 6 physical career links that you can go to, and they have a lot of their services are free, where you can walk in, you can take a resume workshop, you can take a workshop which teaches you how to prepare for a job interview. A lot of those things are free. I mentioned that website that they have where you can search for a job. Those things are free. Some of the other services you kind of have to qualify for, but you can walk into one of those buildings. If you're in Harrisburg, the Career Link's on Cameron Street. But you can walk into that building and you can get some assistance there to help you if you're going through a job search right now.
Career Links is all over the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So out there's no really excuse because they're all over. So, and also I wanted to talk about, what do you think the vision is for jobs of the future?
Sure. I mentioned a little bit earlier, technology's everywhere, and I think it's something that you can't fight it. There's always going to be some processes that still take people, to do them. You're going to need people in the room who are skilled, but I think some of the, if we look at certain jobs that existed in the past that don't exist anymore, which I traveled recently, and I was in an airport in Newark, New Jersey, and walked up to a little area where they had food and snacks and magazines and stuff like that. And I looked around, I couldn't find a cashier. But basically what they had done was, in the past where there maybe had been a desk that you walked up to with a cash register, or maybe 3 cash registers, they had installed about 6 of the self-checkout machines, and they had 1 person that was standing there as kind of the attendant, just to help you out, like if you needed help. So, I say that to say, technology, you look at it, it can, some people look at it as a bad thing, where, on one side, to that story I just told, probably 4 jobs there that were eliminated. But, I think the flip side of that is machines break. Okay. So, right now, I think it's important to figure out, how can you still get involved, in that process from a career standpoint. So, technological maintenance, so learning how to fix certain machines, becoming a programmer, learning how to program certain machines. I think that's where the next wave of jobs is. So again, in the past, you may have been a person that worked, you take, warehouse jobs where you may have had a person that was standing near a machine, taking certain things off of a conveyor belt, putting them in a box. Okay, many of those jobs are automated now, so you probably don't have that person standing there pushing a button or taking those boxes off the conveyor belt. But there may be a robotic arm now that's doing that. But again, as I said before, those things, they malfunction, they break. So if you're a person that either knows how to program that machine, or if you know how to repair that machine when it gets broken, that's what we mean when we say jobs of the future. So again, and those all go back to education. And believe it or not, a lot of the education it takes to get certain jobs like that take less than a 4-year degree. Sometimes even less than a 2-year degree. You may be able to take a 6 to 9 months training, which could prepare you to operate certain machinery, or even to repair, certain machines, as I mentioned before. So, those opportunities are out there. So we just, I think preparation is key really in anything. So, the more that we're being prepared and positioning ourselves to be in line for some of these opportunities, it's going to benefit us.
So also you're saying we need to create our own opportunities and stop waiting on people just to come and grab us and pull us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we people have to kind of change their mindsets too. I'll tell you another quick story. When I was working in workforce development, we used to go out to schools a lot and talk to young people. And there was always a period when I got to a certain part of my presentation where I kind of look over my shoulder and see if the teachers were watching me, because there was usually a point where we talked about like alternative opportunities after graduation. Period, point blank. College is not for everybody. I went to college. I have a 4-year degree, but that's because that was my path. I needed a 4-year degree to do some of the things I wanted to do later on in life. But there are many opportunities, for young people where, they could pursue, I mentioned before, a short-term training right out of high school, or, do certain things like get an apprenticeship or do an internship. And there's a lot of paid internships out there nowadays, but there's pathways for them to get into a career. Let's say it takes them 18 months, let's say it takes them 2 years even, to get right into a job, to where now they're earning money, they're picking up some seniority, whereas a young person that maybe goes to college for 4 years is going to acquire a bunch of student loan debt, and then maybe not be able to find a job in the field that they want. So I mentioned I used to get a little tense in schools because typically, I think it's starting to change a little bit more now, but in the past, schools would really just kind of preach, you got to go to college, after high school, which again, college is the right move for some people, but it's not for everyone, but I do think it's important that a high school student has a plan and, knows how to work that plan, after high school. So, just, being prepared and creating your opportunities. I think it boils down to knowing what the right opportunity is for you, and not really following anybody else's path. You kind of have to know, what's going to be the best for yourself.
What would be your wisdom that you would want to leave with the audience in terms of the overall conversation that we had today? And the only reason I'm saying this because time is like running fast.
Yes, no problem.
We about almost over. We almost over it. I got like 5 more things to ask you. So that means I'm about to bring you back on again.
Invite me back. I'll come back.
But I want you to recap what you think is so important for this audience to hear.
Sure. Something you mentioned earlier, which I didn't really get a chance to speak on, but it stuck with me. Like I said in the opening, I'm a proud, graduate of the Harrisburg School District. And, I do think that something that was, really important at that time was that, not that I think that any of, myself and some of my classmates, not that we were, so much better students then than maybe some of the students now, but I do think that at that time we were just kind of doing, what we were taught, and we were doing what was modeled for us. There were, our parents modeled certain things for us. Some of the, other students that were a couple grades ahead of us were modeling certain things for us. So, I look back, shout out to the class of '96. But I do think in that class, we have, a ton of people that went different paths, but, still, I think, we all made it to where we are now successfully. From, it's some people that became professional athletes to people that got into the medical field, law, business, education, just a ton of different people. But I think the key factor there was family. I know, I knew a lot of people's parents as a young person. My parents knew their parents, so we were able to, just be at each other's houses and, go different places together. You kind of felt that sense of community, and just kind of felt that, people were looking out for you and pushing you to do the right thing. And, if we were ever out in the community and someplace we weren't supposed to be, or doing something we weren't supposed to do, you kind of felt that, there was somebody there that was going to check you, and you accepted it. You just accepted it. It wasn't a thing where you got disrespectful with them or anything like that, because you knew that they had your best interest. So I do think that family and that village, that's important. And I think we got to get back to that. We got to get back to that. Again, I think it's happening. Not to say that it's not. I've had some experiences over the last couple of weeks. Where I mentioned the program with the young people that we ran. The final day of that was just beautiful to see, because we invited all the parents and aunts and uncles came out to support these students when they gave their Shark Tank pitches. So that was good to see. And there were no news cameras there, for that. So I think a lot of times you see certain things in the news, and if you believe everything you see in the news, you feel like almost like there's no hope, for kids and for our communities. But there's a ton of good things still happening, and we just need to build that village back.
I want to, before I close, I think what's important, what you said, is that's why I think it's so important that our community is a village, and we need to be more kinder and gentler to each other. We need to speak to young people. We need to say hello to them. We need to make them feel that they are valuable, which they are. And we need to speak to senior citizens and treat them with respect as well. I think as we develop that respect, but at the same time, I think, as you said earlier, we got to start to do our research or our homework to see what path that we want to go in. And what happens a lot of times, we're not prepared to do that. And then when we decide to do it and it doesn't go the way we want it to go, we get frustrated. So I would say to you that I want to commend you on the work that you're doing. And that's why I had you on here to tell your story. But I'm going to leave with this. Those of you who have some interest in the program, and you don't have to live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, you can go in on their website, Harrisburg University CIE, and you can go on and you can give them your information. And then in January, you can fill out an application. But also, it gives you time now to think about what you want to do. And also what he just said is that if you have ideas now, that you can go on your phone and you can go on your laptop or whatever and just do some information, do some research. And if you do some research, then you can kind of balance it out yourself. So, one of the problems that's always been for us, we never knew what was going on, and we never had the opportunities because we did not know. So now we got to create our own opportunities. So we're going to stop saying we didn't know, and let's do the same kind of research that we do on everything else that we want to know about. So hopefully tonight you got some information out of this. Hopefully you got some motivation out of this. And it just goes to show you that we are doing a lot of things, and we can talk for ourselves and we can showcase ourselves to let everybody know that we're all the same. So thank you for tuning in tonight, and I hope you got something out of it. So thank you and good evening.
Thank you for joining the Richard Utley Show on The Voice 17104. We will be here on The Voice 17104 every first and third Tuesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Once again, thanks for viewing. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Richard Utley, and we welcome your questions and/or comments.
Well, we didn't have to. That's fast. That's what it is. Yeah, you did. Went too fast, man. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.